Real Madrid is widely considered the best team in Europe over the last few decades, with a record 15 Champions League titles in Europe's most elite competition. But many also argue that the Premier League is the toughest league to win. After all, even during seasons when Real Madrid has won the Champions League, they haven't always been La Liga champions. In the 1999-2000 season, for example, Real Madrid finished 5th in La Liga and only qualified for the next season's Champions League by winning it against Valencia. Despite Real Madrid's convincing win today against Leganes 3-0, so far this season Real Madrid has had a lot of struggles after being defeated by AC Milan, Barcelona, and Lille. But a lot of what I'll talk about in this video is looking at things holistically. Reigning English champions Manchester City was beaten yesterday, giving Pep's side 5 defeats in a row. Despite a match where Liverpool could have easily lost, they sit top of the Premier League and host Real Madrid in their next clash. An important match for Real Madrid, given that the Spanish Giants need to win 3 out of their next 4 matches to avoid the playoff stages of the competition. Today, the Premier League is often hailed as the most competitive league in the world due to its pace, intensity, and high level of football. It's no secret that the league's massive TV rights deal have allowed it to propel itself ahead of other European leagues, attracting top players, coaches from around the world. Over the last 4 seasons, Manchester City has won the Premier League by the slimmest of margins, with the race often coming down to the final day. Many regard La Liga as more of a 2-horse race, dominated by 2 giants, Real Madrid and Barcelona, although Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone has competed over the last few years. In this video, we'll try to provide a fair, unbiased opinion on whether Real Madrid could win the Premier League if they played in England. First, let's talk about travel. Spain is 3.88 times larger than England, with over 500,000 square kilometers compared to England's 130,000 square kilometers. This means that the players in La Liga typically travel 30 to 40% more than their Premier League counterparts. When Real Madrid travels to the Canary Islands to face Las Palmas, that's over 1,100 miles away, a nearly 3-hour flight from Madrid. Compare that with Manchester City's longest trip in the Premier League, which is from Manchester to Bournemouth, an hour-long flight at most. But while travel distance seems like a disadvantage for Premier League teams, there are 2 important factors that level the playing field: no winter break and a stricter schedule. Premier League teams don't get the luxury of a winter break, unlike their La Liga counterparts, which often enjoy time off during the New Year period. Spanish teams also benefit from a more lenient scheduling by their football federation, especially when it comes to accommodating Champions League fixtures. Real Madrid, for instance, often gets an extra day or 2 rest before critical European ties, whereas the Premier League doesn't really allow their teams to get the same kind of recovery and rest as the Spanish Federation gives the Spanish teams. Remember Real Madrid's win over Manchester City in the Champions League last season? Real Madrid had an extra few days to prepare for that match, whereas City had more back-to-back games and they had less recovery time. And those little small advantages could make the difference in ties where it's so close. Now, the next thing we want to look at is the points race. Looking at last season, Manchester City won the Premier League with 91 points, suffering 3 defeats along the way. Real Madrid, on the other hand, won La Liga with 95 points, with only suffering 1 defeat at the Metropolitano. However, Real Madrid did score 87 goals in La Liga in comparison to Manchester City, who scored 86 points. And part of the reason for that is simply that Real Madrid secured La Liga pretty early on, and they were resting a lot of their key stars towards their last few games, and they also were in the Champions League final, so they had to prepare by resting and rotating the team more. And let's not forget, Real Madrid beat Rodri's Manchester City, the team that has 116 financial fair play violations. And unlike Manchester City, Real Madrid has 0 financial fair play violations. So we don't have to cheat to get ahead. But anyways, back to the video. Now let's see how Real Madrid has fared against English sides in recent years. Over the last 3 seasons, Real Madrid has faced Manchester City in the Champions League knockout stages, winning 2 out of the last 3 ties. Big shout out to Rodrigo, Rudiger, and my boy Lunin. Big ups. Way to beat the most corrupt team in England. In last year's Champions League round of 16, only 2 English sides were able to make it to that stage of the competition, Arsenal and Manchester City, whereas 3 Spanish sides made it to the Champions League round of 16. You had Real Madrid, you had Atletico Madrid, and you had Real Sociedad. Conversely, in the Europa League, 3 English sides made it to the round of 16. West Ham, Brighton, and Liverpool, versus only 1 Spanish side made it to the round of 16 in the Europa League, which was Villarreal. But it's also worth noting, Spanish sides have won the Europa League 14 times, compared to only 9 times from English sides. And when it comes to the Champions League, English sides have won the Champions League 15 times combined. And of course, we all know Real Madrid has 15 Champions Leagues just by themselves. So much for English dominance, am I right? I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Now, one crucial element that often gets overlooked in this discussion is squad depth. I mean, we cannot forget about the 12th man. So many times in close matches, we've seen players come off the bench and make a huge difference. I don't have to remind you of my boy Rodrigo coming off the bench scoring a double against City. Humbling Rodri, the worst Ballon d'Or winner in history. The Premier League season is a marathon, not a sprint. Yes, Real Madrid's starting 11 is filled with superstars, but the question is, how deep is their bench? In the Premier League, injuries, suspension, and fatigue from restless schedule can derail a team's title chances. Real Madrid has had an impressive squad depth in the last few years. Players like Camavinga, players like Asensio, Rodrigo. These are players that have come off the bench over the last few seasons and made a huge impact. So in conclusion, everything that I covered in this video, here's what I have to say. The Premier League, yes, is more entertaining as a league. It's more fun to watch for the consumer. And yes, they have more revenue from a TV rights perspective. They have some of the best managers in the world. They recruit some of the best players. They can pay them more money. But in terms of the quality in Spain, the football is more technical. And whenever Spanish teams have faced English sides in European competition, the Spanish sides have clearly performed better. And some of the players on the fringes at Real Madrid, players like Rodrigo, who in some cases would start a match. In some cases, he'd be the first player to come off the bench. He'd be the first player on the team sheet for Manchester City, for Arsenal, for these other really elite teams in England. So the quality, the gap between Real Madrid and any other team in England, I believe, even Manchester City, Real Madrid is simply the best club in the world. Are they at their best right now? No. But City just lost 5 games in a row. And that's why I'm so confident when I say that if Real Madrid was in the Premier League, they would win the Premier League decisively, comfortably. And the only reason why Real Madrid underperforms in the league is because they don't take it as seriously as they do the Champions League. When it comes to competition where they're faced with actual elite football, they take it up another gear. We all know that there is a lot more physical demands in the Premier League. You know, if you're traveling away to Stoke, it's a rainy day, the ball's in the air 90% of the football match. But the quality of these players at Real Madrid, and every time a Spanish team has faced an English team, they tend to beat them. So in conclusion, I do believe in the end of the day, if Real Madrid was in the Premier League, you would not have a situation where Manchester City is dominating the league, winning it year after year. Let me know if you guys agree. Make sure you guys stay tuned to my channel because I'll be dropping a video ahead of the clash against Liverpool this week. So make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hala Madrid.